Everyone keeps saying the same thing about Sydney Sweeney, that she's overrated, that she can't carry a movie, that her fame is artificial, that this next flop will finally be the one that ends her career. And yet, every single time Hollywood prepares her funeral, Sydney Sweeney somehow walks out louder, richer, and more famous than before, which makes no sense if you're still thinking about success the old way. Because in the traditional Hollywood system, failure is supposed to be final, a bad box office opening is supposed to close doors, a critically dragged performance is supposed to slow momentum, and an actress who appears in too many projects too fast is supposed to burn out. But Sydney Sweeney breaks every one of those rules at the same time, because while some of her films underperform and some projects fail to meet expectations, her visibility never drops, her name never stops trending, and her relevance never fades. And that's because Sydney Sweeney is not playing the prestige game or the approval game. She's playing the attention game, which is the real currency of modern Hollywood, where being talked about matters more than being universally loved, and being debated matters more than being praised, because every so-called failure creates another wave of conversation, another round of headlines, another reason for people to search her name, argue about her talent, question her fame, and defend or attack her online, turning her into something much more powerful than just an actress, turning her into a topic. And topics don't disappear quietly, they grow, especially when they divide people, and Sydney Sweeney has become one of the most divisive figures in Hollywood, not because she's bad at what she does, but because she refuses to fit neatly into a single narrative. She isn't the flawless prestige darling, and she isn't a disposable celebrity either. She exists in that uncomfortable middle space where people can't agree on what she represents. And that confusion fuels obsession, because while critics may focus on box office numbers and individual projects, studios look at search trends, engagement, and cultural presence, all areas where Sydney consistently overperforms, even when a film struggles, because her brand was never built on perfection. It was built on relatability, controversy, and constant visibility. And that's why backlash doesn't damage her the way people expect it to, because audiences don't see her as untouchable or manufactured. They see her as human, flawed, and constantly under pressure, especially in an industry that applies harsher standards to women, where male actors are forgiven for flops while female actresses are told they were never talented to begin with. A double standard that Sydney Sweeney unintentionally exposed just by continuing to work, continuing to show up, and continuing to stay visible while people begged her to disappear, not realizing that disappearing is the fastest way to lose power in the attention economy. So instead of retreating, she leaned into the chaos, allowing every criticism, every viral argument, and every negative headline to feed the machine that keeps her relevant. Because in today's Hollywood, failing quietly is deadly, but failing loudly can be profitable. And Sydney Sweeney mastered that before most people even realized the rules had changed. Which is why calling her a failure misses the point entirely, because she isn't failing in the traditional sense. She's failing forward, using every setback as fuel, every backlash as amplification, and every so-called loss as another step toward cultural dominance. And the real question isn't why Sydney Sweeney keeps failing and still winning. It's why Hollywood still pretends this strategy doesn't work, even though she's living proof that it does. Hollywood's biggest shock with Sydney Sweeney wasn't that some of her films underperformed. It was that every failure seemed to make her stronger, louder, and more unavoidable. And that's the moment the industry realized she couldn't be controlled, because the old Hollywood model thrives on control, locking young actresses into a fixed image, safe roles, limited appearances, carefully managed interviews, and minimal risk. But Sydney Sweeney quietly rejected all of it, refusing to wait for the perfect role, refusing to disappear when critics said she was overexposed, continuously working across every genre, every scale, every tone, turning what looked like chaos into constant visibility. And while critics complained about overexposure, the audience could not look away. Every flop became another reason to talk about her. Every backlash turned into more debate, and instead of retreating, she leaned into the noise, mastering attention as a weapon, proving that in the modern entertainment world, Staying visible and controversial can be far more powerful than traditional success because Hollywood doesn't reward perfection anymore. It rewards engagement, discussion, and obsession, and Sydney Sweeney became the living proof that losing on paper can be winning in culture, attention, and influence, turning every supposed failure into a step forward in her unstoppable rise, and showing everyone watching that sometimes the rules aren't broken, they're rewritten by the very person everyone assumed would fall first. As Sydney Sweeney continued to navigate Hollywood's unpredictable landscape, something extraordinary happened. She transformed the very idea of what it means to fail, because every criticism, every headline declaring her career over, every viral argument about her talent or her choices only amplified her presence and drew more attention to her name. And while many stars retreat after backlash, Sydney leaned into it, using controversy as a tool rather than a threat, turning social media, debates, fan speculation, and industry gossip into a continuous spotlight that no amount of negative press could dim. And in doing so, she exposed the harsh reality of modern fame, where the rules of the past, box office numbers, critical acclaim, awards, matter far less than visibility, engagement, and discussion. And her strategy revealed a stark truth. The more unavoidable you become, the more powerful you are, because Hollywood's obsession with control can't contain someone who refuses to fit into pre-written scripts, refuses to wait for permission, and refuses to disappear. And every flop, every misstep, every moment that would traditionally end a career instead became another layer of her mythos, a story that audiences, journalists, and even her critics could not stop watching. And that is why Sydney Sweeney's career defies expectation, because in a world obsessed with perfection and predictability, she thrives on unpredictability, showing that sometimes winning isn't about avoiding failure at all. It's about using it, embracing it, and turning it into something far more potent than conventional success could ever offer. Eventually, Hollywood had to face the undeniable truth. Sydney Sweeney could not be contained, controlled, or predicted, because every tactic designed to limit her influence, carefully curated press, strategic silence, selective casting, backfired as she transformed setbacks into opportunities, turning criticism into conversation, failures into cultural moments, and negative headlines into fuel for her unstoppable visibility. And yet this strategy, as brilliant as it is, carries a risk that few dare to discuss, because attention is a double-edged sword, and the very same chaos that propels her forward could one day overwhelm, exhaust, or backfire if mismanaged. But for now, Sydney Sweeney continues to thrive in the tension between expectation and reality, proving that modern Hollywood success is no longer measured by traditional markers like box office, awards, or praise alone, but by influence, engagement, and the ability to dominate the conversation. And in this way, every misstep, every flop, every moment that seemed like it should have ended her career instead cements her position as one of the most fascinating, resilient, and unpredictable figures in entertainment today, showing the world that failure, when wielded strategically, isn't a weakness. It's the most powerful weapon of all, and Sydney Sweeney has mastered it to perfection. By now, Sydney Sweeney has turned what most actors fear most, failure, controversy, criticism, into a calculated engine for her rise, because in a world where audiences scroll past perfection and flock to unpredictability, she thrives in the space between admiration and outrage, where every interview, every red carpet, every social media post sparks debate and keeps her name trending. And what's fascinating is that she does it without apology, without carefully manufactured PR shields, choosing instead to let the public reaction fuel her presence. And the result is a career that seems chaotic on the surface, but is meticulously strategic underneath, where flops are not setbacks but stepping stones, where criticism is repurposed as engagement, and where attention itself becomes currency. And as Hollywood watches, bewildered, her influence grows, because in the new rules of fame, being unforgettable matters more than being flawless. And Sydney Sweeney has proven that the only way to truly lose is to stop showing up. But she never stops, she never hesitates, and she never disappears, turning every obstacle, every doubt, every challenge into a spectacle that keeps audiences glued to screens. algorithms hungry, and competitors scrambling to understand how a young actress can fail over and over on paper, yet remain untouchable in culture, proving that in today's entertainment ecosystem, resilience, audacity, and relentless visibility are far more valuable than any traditional measure of success, and that's why Sydney Sweeney continues to win, even when everyone expects her to fall. Sydney Sweeney's rise is not just about persistence or talent. It's about mastering the psychology of modern fame, because in an age where every click, every comment, every share translates directly into influence, she understands that the perception of failure can be more powerful than success itself, and by embracing controversy, criticism, and unpredictability, she forces the audience to engage with her story constantly, turning what seems like setbacks into narrative hooks. And while traditional Hollywood strategies might have urged her to retreat, refine, or play it safe, she instead amplifies visibility, knowing that attention, good or bad, is the ultimate form of currency, and this relentless presence ensures that even her worst projects spark debate, create headlines, and drive searches, while competitors and critics struggle to define her or predict her next move, proving that true power in entertainment no longer lies in flawless performances or perfect PR, but in cultural dominance, audience obsession, and the ability to convert chaos into a controlled spectacle. And Sydney Sweeney has not only embraced this new rulebook, but rewritten it entirely for herself, showing the world that failing on paper does not equal losing in reality, and that in the modern ecosystem of Hollywood, resilience, strategic visibility, and audacious risk-taking can transform every perceived defeat into a triumph that few dare to imagine, making her career a masterclass in turning criticism, chaos, and controversy into unstoppable momentum. Sydney Sweeney's career is a case study in turning moments of doubt into moments of dominance, because every time a film underperforms, a headline attacks her talent, or critics question her choices, she transforms it into content, conversation, and engagement that no studio can manufacture. And this mastery of attention has created a feedback loop where controversy drives visibility, visibility drives searches, and searches drive further debate. And while many actors would see this cycle as dangerous or damaging, Sydney has learned to embrace it as fuel, choosing roles, interviews, and social media interactions that spark discussion, highlight her unpredictability, and keep audiences invested in her story. And the brilliance of her strategy is that it doesn't rely on perfection, awards, or universal praise, but on cultural presence, algorithmic dominance, and audience obsession, meaning that even projects deemed failures or flops do not harm her brand, but rather reinforce her status as one of the most talked about and scrutinized young stars in Hollywood today. And this continuous engagement ensures that she remains a subject of fascination, speculation, and loyalty, showing that the modern definition of winning has shifted from flawless achievement to calculated attention, and that Sydney Sweeney, through audacity, resilience, and an instinctive understanding of audience psychology, has not only survived Hollywood's pressures, but has learned to use them as the engine driving her unstoppable rise, proving that the ability to dominate conversation and convert criticism into momentum is far more powerful than any conventional measure of success. Sydney Sweeney's ability to turn controversy and criticism into fuel for her rise reaches its peak when you examine the way specific projects and public moments have amplified her fame, because every role, interview, or headline that could have been a setback instead becomes a magnet for attention, sparking debates, trending searches, and social media conversations that keep her in the spotlight long after a project's release. And this phenomenon isn't accidental. It's a product of her instinctive understanding of audience psychology, knowing that humans are drawn to unpredictability, drama, and the tension between failure and success. And by embracing that tension, she transforms moments that might have ended other careers into opportunities for cultural dominance, creating a cycle where engagement feeds attention, attention fuels debate, and debate drives relevance. And in doing so, she proves that modern Hollywood no longer rewards those who play it safe, but those who Turn every challenge, criticism, and controversy into a story that the world cannot stop following, and Sydney Sweeney has mastered that story, maintaining a delicate balance where flops, backlash, and heated discussions do not weaken her brand but strengthen it, showing that strategic visibility, calculated risk-taking, and the ability to convert chaos into momentum are now more powerful than traditional markers of success, and that her career serves as a blueprint for thriving in an entertainment ecosystem where attention is everything, and winning is measured not by perfection or approval but by cultural impact, audience obsession, and relentless presence. As Sydney Sweeney's career unfolds, the pattern becomes undeniable. She thrives not despite failure, controversy, and criticism, but because of them, turning each apparent setback into a carefully leveraged moment of visibility that keeps audiences, media, and Hollywood executives endlessly engaged. And while most actors fear backlash or poor reviews, Sydney uses these exact pressures to reinforce her presence, knowing that in the modern entertainment ecosystem, attention, engagement, and cultural discussion outweigh box office numbers, critical praise, or awards, and this mastery of perception allows her to remain a dominant force even when projects underperform, because her brand isn't tied to flawless performances or perfect PR. It's built on relatability, audacity, and unpredictability, and by consistently choosing roles, interviews, and public appearances that spark debate and draw attention, she ensures that she is always part of the conversation, that her name trends long after headlines fade, and that she converts even negative sentiment into momentum, demonstrating that winning in today's Hollywood is less about avoiding failure and more about controlling the narrative, managing attention, and turning chaos into cultural influence. And through this approach, Sydney Sweeney has not only survived every cycle of criticism and perceived loss, but has emerged stronger each time, cementing her status as one of the most fascinating, resilient, and strategically intelligent young stars in entertainment today, and proving to the industry and audiences alike that the real power lies not in flawless success, but in the art of winning while failing. Sydney Sweeney's journey proves that the old rules of Hollywood no longer apply, because in a world obsessed with visibility, engagement, and cultural relevance, she has rewritten the playbook entirely, turning setbacks, flops, and criticism into the very tools that propel her forward. And while traditional metrics like box office, awards, or critical acclaim still matter to some, her real power lies in her ability to dominate conversation, spark debate, and command attention, making her untouchable in ways that few stars ever achieve. And this mastery of perception, strategy, and audience psychology ensures that every failure becomes a stepping stone, every controversy becomes a headline, and every backlash becomes fuel, allowing her to thrive in the tension between expectation and reality. And as Hollywood watches, bewildered but unable to stop following, Sydney Sweeney continues to prove that winning is not about perfection or avoiding mistakes, but about resilience, audacity, and the relentless pursuit of cultural dominance. And by embracing failure as a weapon rather than a weakness, she has cemented herself as one of the most fascinating, unpredictable, and powerful figures in modern entertainment, showing the world that true success is measured not by flawless achievement, but by influence, obsession, and the ability to turn chaos into momentum. And that is why, time and again, Sydney Sweeney keeps failing and still wins every single time.